They say hell is other people, but after 100%ing Hell Is Us, I am convinced hell is getting dropped into a war-scarred country with no map, no markers, and only your wits to keep you alive. It is tense, often confusing, and frequently brilliant. The game strips away modern conveniences, trusts you to pay attention, and rewards that attention with moments of genuine discovery. When it stumbles, it does so in ways that feel forgivable and fixable. When it hits very hard. Let's get nerdy. Hadea 1990s, a nation ripped apart by civil conflict, layered over ruins and rituals that predate the current war. That contrast is what makes this world work. I moved from muddy checkpoints and shelled towns into impossible chambers carved from obsidian, and the shift felt wrong in exactly the right way. The country feels grounded and alien at the same time, and that dissonance fuels that atmosphere. The absence of a minimap is no gimmick. I navigated by bells, wind chimes, skylines, and half-whispered directions from locals. Landmarks became tools, not background scenery. The level design feeds you just enough subtle clues to keep you moving, but it never hands you the solution. Getting lost is part of the point, and finding your way back feels like an earned victory. Hadea itself is not just wallpaper. The scars of war are everywhere. Propaganda posters peeling from walls, graves dug into muddy fields, burned out vehicles turned into barricades. The supernatural threat feels born from that anger, not layered on top of it. This is a believable place where horror leaks through the cracks, and I found myself unsettled even in the quietest corners. You play as Remy, a soldier returning to his birthplace under the cover of a peacekeeping mission, then abandoning the mission to chase his own past. That personal motivation fits the grounded tone of the world. This is not a chosen one prophecy. It's about a man stubbornly digging into unanswered questions. What impressed me was how the game feeds story through discovery rather than exposition. A farmer with a guarded story only opened up after repeated conversations. A soldier's casual comment about the encampment became an actual lead. Dialogue often splits between broad lore and specific investigative prompts, so every conversation feels like a chance to uncover something useful rather than a checklist of quest givers. The narrative works best when it stays close to the people of Hadea. The optional Good Deeds side quest highlights small tragedies and small triumphs in a way that gave weight to the wider war. When the story pulls back to grander supernatural arcs, it can feel cooler and less focused, but overall, the mystery structure fits the exploratory ethos. You are meant to piece this story together yourself, and that kept me engaged. Performance sells it. Elia Tufexis brings Remy a quiet gravity without leaning on constant quips, and supporting characters sound like people barely holding things together. That restraint means the supernatural moments land harder when they break through. The visual design thrives on contrast. Trenches, rain, and rusted streets give way to alien geometry that looks carved by something inhuman. The hollow waters look like sculptures that woke up angry, and when they split into geometric horrors, the whole space feels hostile. The art direction ensures the uncanny never breaks the believability of Hadea. It all feels like part of the same nightmare. Audio is more than atmosphere. It's navigation. I learned to hunt for wild chimes, machinery hums, or bells in the distance. Silence carries just as much weight as music. Interior spaces drop into oppressive rumbles, punctuated by metallic shrieks, and every creak of wood in the quiet hits harder than a scripted jump scare. Play this one with headphones. You will miss half the experience otherwise. The exploration and navigation design philosophy is clear. No breadcrumbs, no pathfinding lines, no one holding your hand. NPCs give directions like real people do. My compass points north, and that is about it. Notes I collected stored facts, not solutions. And spotting landmarks someone described felt earned in a way ticking icons off of a map never does. That sense of self-reliance is the spine of this experience. Quests are framed as investigations, not errands. A pocket watch engraved with a name was not a fetch quest, it was a lead. Who owned it? Where did they go? Who cares enough to want it back? Puzzles lean on observation and logic. A child's crude map describing crooked trees and broken wagons was enough to guide me to a solution. Symbols carved into a stone lined up perfectly with a lock I found hours ago. None of these puzzles were about trial and error. They rewarded attentiveness. At first glance, I wouldn't blame you to think that this was a Souls-like. In practice, it's a deliberate action game with heavy commitment on swings and stamina that shrinks as you take damage. The healing pulse mechanic ties combat to rhythm. Time your input after a combo and you regain health and stamina. When I locked onto that rhythm, combat felt sharp and empowering, and when I missed it, it was somewhat punishing. That loop did keep me engaged across most of the game. The difficulty can be adjusted mid-run if that's something that you're interested in. And sometimes I wanted the tension of punishing fights, other times I just wanted to explore. And having that option, especially for more casual gamers, is a great option. Remy's drone is also more than a gimmick. It was my flashlight, my scanner, and my tactical partner. In combat, it stunned enemies and brought me space. Out of combat, it translated glyphed and surfaced interactables I might have missed. Whereas the buildcraft layers across weapon types, drone modules, and relic passives. I experimented with parry-focused builds and dodge-heavy builds, and both were viable play options. Unfortunately though, enemy families are not as varied as I would have liked, and after a dozen or so hours, the encounters did start to blur together. But the emotional damage system and elite variants gave me enough to think about when choosing gear and routing through encounters. Performance on current builds was stable, load times were quick, and combat felt responsive. The user interface could use some work, text is quite small, and the lack of a journal for puzzle solutions meant I had to take some real notes off screen. That is part of the purest vision, but it can cross into frustration when you miss a single clue and have to backtrack blindly. As a completionist, I found Hell Is Us both rewarding and demanding. The achievement list pushes you to see everything the game has to offer. Finish all acts, completing every good deed, cleansing every time loop, discovering every location, collecting all glyphs and relics, and upgrading weapons and armor to their maximum limit. Combat milestones tied to emotional elite enemies added another layer of challenge. Good deeds are not dropped into a checklist. They are tucked away into the world, triggered by found items or overheard needs. Some can be missed if you push the story too fast. If you truly care about bringing everyone safely to Lake Cynon Refuge, here's my advice. You need to slow down and clear areas thoroughly. That sense of consequence made these quests feel meaningful. Collectibles feed directly into your progression also. Glyphs expand your toolkit, relics shape your passives, and drone modules unlock new possibilities. Hunting these down never felt like busy work. It felt like finishing a build. Mainlining the main story sees you run up a playthrough of about 25 or so hours. Going for 100% easily doubles that. I spent most of my run taking notes, backtracking, and cross-referencing hints. It felt less like clearing icons from a map and more like solving a living hostile place. That is exactly what I want in a completionist run. Hell Is Us is a rare modern game that is comfortable being quiet, patient, and demanding. It replaces map icons with observation, replaces checklist design with investigation, and lets the player own both their confusion and their triumphs. The combat is deliberate, the puzzles are fair, and the world is the kind that lingers. The flaws are clear, but so is the identity. If you miss discovery that feels earned, if you want a completion journey built on curiosity rather than errands, this is absolutely worth your time. Hallis Us delivered a gripping, sometimes brutal, often beautiful adventure that rewards attention and patience in equal measure. Like, share, subscribe, and stay nerdy.